Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far in, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that helps to promote my channel. I also love it if you leave a comment. Today I'm going to do a multi-project video. It's going to be 3 different relatively simple filigree projects. So I'm going to make a little ring with some filigree in it. I'm going to make a delicate bracelet that has a little bit of filigree to it. And then I'm going to make a bar pin with a little, I'm not sure if it's a rhodolite garnet, but it looks like a rhodolite garnet. It may be a synthetic, so I picked it up somewhere and I don't remember where. So, but either way, it's kind of a pretty reddish purple. And before we get started on the project, though, I need to thank some people. I wanted to especially thank my patrons over on Patreon. They've chosen to sign up for my premium content, and I really appreciate that. Their financial help as well as their moral support is really great for me. So I love the interactions we have over there. It's a really nice group of people. Thank you so much for making that such a cool place. I also wanted to thank my YouTube subscribers. We've just passed 8,800, and that's awesome, and I'm looking forward to hitting 10,000 pretty soon, so tell your friends. I really do appreciate the support all of my YouTube followers have provided, not only financial, like the buying me a coffee thing, which helps with supplies and stuff, but also just the kind words and the video suggestions and video editing suggestions. All those kind of things are very useful. So thanks for that. I appreciate your support. All right, let's get started on these projects. So let's look at my design idea book and see what I drew up for today. You can find these on my merch store if you're interested. I find it's useful to draw up some design ideas before I start, and especially with something as detailed as filigree like this. So check them out. There's 3 different designs on the covers. There's also other merch if you want to check it out too. I'll show you what some of the ideas I drew up. I came up with a couple of types of rings. I could do this sort of a ring with an ornate pattern in the middle here, and I thought about doing that with a stone mounted. I was thinking about using that rhodolite garnet. This one has more of a kind of a football shape or a marquee shape to it, and I think that'll make for a nice ring if we make that the head of the ring and then just do a split band like that. I thought of maybe doing a real delicate kind of filigree link bracelet. I modified it a little bit from what I drew up here, but that'll be one of the ones that I do. This was a bar pin. This was a kind of a heart pendant that I might do sometime. And then this is another bar pin, and I think that's the one I'm going to do today. So I'm going to use that garnet here instead of on the ring, because I'm going to do this kind of ring. So I'll do this one. This will be number 2, and this will be number 3. So we'll start with that ring. I did a little bit of pre-made stuff on some of them because there's going to be quite a bit of work in doing 3 of these projects in one evening. So one thing you should know about, I think true filigree generally has twisted wire as the little ornate shapes, and so I have some 26 gauge wire that's twisted together. I also made a little bit of where did that go? A little bit of 22 gauge wire for some thicker stuff. I think the 26 will work for this and maybe the fine details in there, but these pieces are going to actually be links in the bracelet, and I think I want them to be a little bit stronger, so I did a little bit of 22 gauge twisted together to make some of the links. So I'll show you how we do that. But let's start with a ring. I made the frame in advance here for both of the central thing here and this thing, and what I used was 14 gauge square wire, and I flattened it out a little bit. I used a rolling mill, but you could also just pound it flat if you wanted to. So I made those in advance just so I had a starting point, and then I made a couple of little figure 8 kind of pieces to hold it in place there. So, and now what I need to do is I need to fill it in with some more of these little fine kind of curly cues. So when I start to get into stuff that's this kind of a size, it gets to be a little bit cumbersome for me because I have kind of big fingers, and so I'm using very tips of my round nose pliers and making tiny little loops. I'm going to make a bunch of little curly cues like that. So I'll make a few of those. Could probably achieve a little bit thinner look if we flattened the actual twisted wire in a rolling mill or by pounding it. Get even a narrower profile on the little curly cues. I've done some filigree-ish things on the channel before, but not usually this intricate. Kind of just shaping these a little bit, and then I'll fine-tune them as I need them for this piece. I've never done one quite this delicate, so we'll see if I can pull it off today. This probably is not going to be a in the low end of projects like beginners. You might want to give yourself a little soldering practice before you attempt something quite this detailed, if you're new to this. I used to get filigree mixed up with open pierce work. I just thought anything with lots of little kind of delicate designs was filigree, but it's different than doing pierce work. Pierce work is where you cut things out with a saw, something I'm not super good at. But I'm getting a little better. Not good enough to do really delicate, intricate things like those people who cut coins. If you've never seen that, you should look that up. It's amazing some of the little things they can do. How detailed. I do not have that kind of sewing skills. I may modify the little designs I drew up inside of these frames that I have, or this frame anyway. I haven't made the frame for the wire pendant yet. I may modify the designs a little bit so they fit or look better if I don't think that they look quite right when I put them in there. Or if I manage to melt it and I have to pull it all out and start again, which is always a possibility. I'm going to be using very small pieces of solder for this too. You don't want a lot of clumpiness here. And if you've never been to my channel, I do pretty much always hard silver sheet solder and liquid flux called My-T-Flux that I spray on with the spray bottle. I also need to get an eyedropper. People keep telling me to get an eyedropper, and that's probably a good idea. There's some situations where that would be handy. If you've never twisted wire yourself, it's super easy to do. I just chuck it right into a drill and then loop it around like a nail or something, and then just spin the drill till it twists itself up. It's easy and sort of fun and satisfying. I have a video if you want to check it out. I'll put a link up there for you. It's not super complex though. You probably can get by without watching the video. It's kind of one of my early ones, so it's probably not edited very well. Sound might be crummy. Set this here so you can see it better not against the brown table. So if I do it like that, I'll need to cut it off about right. And that'll end up being right there. Kind of like how that looks. Let's see if I can make another one that's about the same. This is going to require some delicate pick soldering. So if you haven't learned how to do that yet, I also have a video about that. It's a super useful skill. You should check that out. Learn how to do that. So let's solder those in. See how it looks. I'm going to cut some little teensy weensy pieces. A little dinky piece of solder on my pick. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit as many as I had drawn in here. I had 3 on each side, so I'm probably just going to be able to do like those 2 and then 2 more on each side. We'll see. Again, I'm using very small pieces of solder here. So I think that came out pretty good. And I believe what I might do, I'm going to try to dome this just a tiny bit. That's kind of what I wanted. I made it a little bit boat shaped and pushed it upwards a little bit so that'll kind of stand out nicely, I think. So I just need to add a band on that, and I'll be right back. So I took some 14 gauge square wire, I soldered it together with a split end on either side like that, and I've centered it on the outside of that little band, and I'm just going to kind of position it like this on my magnesia block with the hopes that nothing shifts too much, that it kind of lined up just how I want it. Oops, lost my ball. Let's see how we did. I think we did okay. Okay, I'm going to pickle that one. And we can start working on the chain. So I need to make some of these, and I decided on a size. Which turned out to be this size here. And let's see how long those ended up being. I kind of used my eyeball, but 27 millimeters. So a little more than an inch, I guess. I need to make them into kind of a loop and then curl the ends around and then hook two of them together. So I think I'm going to do it around my bail making pliers like this. I'm going to do that. Pretty close. Okay, and a little bit of that left, so I'm just going to make kind of a curved piece. I'll just cut segments of the circle off to make those other little pieces that stick out a little bit to make our loops. Again, I'm going to want to use pretty tiny pieces of solder to connect these. Moved everything out of position there. I was a little aggressive in my fluxing. I'm going to add a little bit more in this one. Maybe that one too. The other kind of link is this twisted square wire, about 16 gauge. I already cut a bunch of these pieces off the size that I wanted. And this size right here, which is about 2 centimeters or 20 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I grabbed some 20 gauge round wire, and I'm going to make some smallest loops I can with these bail making pliers. Then I'm going to solder one on each end of this little bar. But I'm going to solder them to the bar, but I'm not going to solder them closed. My drawing showed 2 of those between each one. 2 of these between each of these. I decided to do one longer one between each of those. Alright, so I got an open loop on either end of this. I should be able to just start, once I have them all made, start hooking them together like this and soldering these closed. That's the side right there. And I'll just solder those closed. And once I make the rest of those, I'll just keep working my way down until I have enough. And I think for this one, I'm just going to add just a little lobster claw clasp or something like that. But I think that's going to make for a delicate looking chain. So let me go ahead and finish that up. I'm going to just be doing the same thing I just did over and over again. So then we'll get back and do the third piece. So I hope you can see this over here. I did a little bit of work off camera for time's sake. Mostly because I wasn't doing anything that was terribly different from what I was doing for the other ones, so I think you can kind of intuit what I did here. There we go. That's pretty close. So I've got kind of a loop on the end of a long piece of twisted wire. This is the 22, and then just a couple of swirls on either side. I created this frame out of 16 gauge, and then I put a little ball at the end to kind of be the end of it. After we solder this in, I'll be putting this bezel that I made for that garnet. That'll go kind of right in the center here. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll put a little pin back on it that I'm going to make. So let's get this thing assembled. And then we can get everything finished up. I'm going to attempt to not solder that to the to the edges. I don't know if I'll succeed or not, but we'll see. So let's give it a try. probably plenty of solder on there, but I'm going to sweat a little bit on the middle there. Yeah, let's do a little on the back of this too. I want to put a pin back on this. I'm going to use a little bit more 16. They need to be about twice as long. Plus a little bit more. $60 is a 120. Let's add another centimeter or so. So I need the pin to stick out just a little bit longer than it is when we start. And right about there, I'm going to make a loop. So right about here is where I want the hook to be. So let's just bend that upwards right there. Like that. I'm going to use round nose pliers. To do that. Temporarily move that out of the way. I'm going to flatten this one just a little bit. Now, let's sweat. I'm going to sweat a little bit of solder along the bottom side of this here. See where we're at here. I got that wire a little bit melty. I'm going to pick a little more solder over here just to see if I can get it to stick a little bit on that side. This side's great. I even melted the tip of my little hook, which I may just leave because it might be helpful in keeping that in place. On there, so I'm going to let that pickle for a while with the other two projects. So after they pickle for a while, One thing I will do is, because this is going to be all soft and squishy from annealing it when we soldered it on, I will twist that wire over and over again so it work hardens it so it's a sharp or a stiff pin, and then I'll file it to a point so it just hooks right in that little hook there. And we'll set the stone after it's all polished. So I'll pickle that, and then next time you see me, we'll have some finished pieces. So I got everything polished up and I set the stone on the pin. If you're interested in seeing how to set a faceted stone, put a link right up there for you. Okay, so here's the ring. I think we got pretty close to what I was trying to shoot for there. It's not exactly the same pattern that I had anticipated, but I think it came out pretty good. Let's see. We got our little bracelet here. Like I said, I just put a little lobster claw clasp on there, since it's kind of a dainty little thing. But I'm pleased with the way that came out. And we got our little bar pin here. So that's very similar to what I was doing. Exactly the same, but pretty close. Pin goes like this. I did twist the pin up to make it work hardened and sharpened it. So now it's ready to go. So there we go. Right, well, that was the 3 filigree projects. I hope you enjoyed them, and I think there's a lot of room for variation there, so you could play around with that and come up with some pretty cool designs. If you did enjoy the content, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. Feel free to leave a comment, and you know, check out my playlist page, because that's got some great ways to navigate my channel. With over 270 videos now, it's getting a little cumbersome just to scroll through the list. So it's divided up into beginning, intermediate, advanced kind of videos, as well as different kinds of projects like ring projects, pendant projects, even some art period kind of playlists. So it makes it a little bit easier to navigate the page. So check that out and maybe subscribe. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Before you leave, also check out the video description. There's a number of ways to become involved and support the channel. There's a link in there for buying me a coffee, which helps with supplies. There's a link to my merch store, which also helps financially. And you can check out my website if you want to look at some jewelry I've made or maybe buy some. And then finally, there's information about my Patreon site. So check that out if you're interested in becoming part of that community. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a nice day. Happy silversmithing. Take care.